At this time, I'd like to invite Dave Schlesinger, AE 9/11 Truth Coordinator for our Congressional Outreach Team. Dave?
Thank you so much. Yes, our team is one of more than a dozen different teams which we invite people to join. The host of our mock debate today is former Senator and presidential candidate Mike Gravel of Alaska. Most people don't know that Mike Gravel became Speaker of the Alaska House of Representatives in only his second term. An early and courageous opponent of America's war in Vietnam, Senator Gravel filibustered the Senate by himself to end the war by stopping the draft. And when Daniel Ellsberg sought a senator to read the Pentagon Papers into the congressional record, it was Senator Gravel alone who had the courage to stand up to the Washington war establishment and make those papers public property. He's the founder of the Democracy Foundation, an organization that seeks a constitutional amendment to allow citizens to enact laws through ballot initiatives when their representatives fail them. As Democratic candidate for president in 2007, he demanded an immediate end to the war in Iraq and an end to the dominance of the military-industrial complex over national policy. As Libertarian candidate for president in 2008, he demanded an end to the cycle of American imperialism and endorsed the New York City 9/11 ballot initiative to create a private citizens commission with subpoena power against even the highest government officials to make a true investigation as to what happened on September 11th, 2001. It's an honor to introduce one of America's true profiles in courage, Senator Mike Gravel.
Thank you all for coming. The title of this mock conference is, or debate, if you will, it's not much of a debate, is Hard Evidence of Explosive Demolition at the World Trade Center on 9/11. That is quite an indictment when you fully appreciate what hard evidence really means. We're dealing today with this very difficult subject, and we ask why after 9 years, and we're so close to the anniversary, why revisit this subject? Well, there's several good reasons why. One is, it was the occasion for two wars. One which is, quote, supposedly ending, and the other which is continuing, which has cost the lives of several million people worldwide. That's one reason. There's another closer to home, and that is what we've done to our civil society with the Patriot Act, with the military tribunals, with the legitimization of torture, where the United States worldwide is now recognized as a country that engages in torture. And this evidence is overwhelming. So if there's any reason why we should look at this again, it's got to be for those reasons. We can't live with that anymore. Now, the whole concept, and that's the part of the mock side, is that there's a body of people that feel that this has been adequately investigated. Well, I got to tell you, that's not exactly accurate, because the investigation was not what we call an investigation. It was to develop a storyline of what happened to be fed to the American people and to receive their acquiescence. When you stop and think, the investigation, which essentially was opposed by the presidential White House at the time, and it was the victims' families who pressed to get this investigation going to begin with. And so they threw at this $600,000 and put together a staff of volunteers. Well, the spokesman for FEMA made the statement that we are not an investigative agency. And of course, in some degrees, they're not. And that's quoted in the New York Times. At the very time that FEMA was doing this work, developing a storyline, truckloads upon truckloads of the debris was being hauled away. And I'm glad that somebody saved the dust so you could go in and make an examination of what they found. The commission report was not tasked as an investigative body. They weren't there to investigate. They were made up of basically politicians and government appointees and very few engineers. The commission publicly stated, senior counsel for the commission publicly stated, and I'm quoting, that the commission was a compromise, fraudulent, or invalid. Thomas Kern and Lee Hamilton, the governor of New Jersey, and Lee Hamilton, a distinguished member of Congress, co-chaired the 9/11 Commission. They said that their report, and they were being very political in this regard, was not to be considered the last word. This is candor. Not to be considered the last word, but just the beginning of the discovery of what happened. In their book, Without Precedent, they wrote that the commission had been set up to fail. Now, these are the two guys that were placed in charge of it. They said they had considered referring top military officers for prosecution for obstructing the investigation. And they were informed, well, you don't have that authority, and so bypass that. Just as an aside, our intelligence community was budgeted at the time of 9/11 at $26 billion a year. No person has ever been fired for incompetence, and their budget is now $75 billion a year. Hamilton has also said that people should keep asking questions about 9/11 and that the debate should continue. Well, the only people responding to that are these gentlemen and the victims, some of the victims' families that are responding to that do want to see this continue and a dialogue and investigation take place. Senator Max Cleland, who lost both his legs in the Vietnam War, was appointed to the commission, declaring that it had been that the commission had been compromised and was a national scandal. America is being cheated, Cleland was quoted in Salon. The White House wants to cover it up. Well, many of us had that same sense, but when you have a person on the inside who's privy to the information, you now know that it's a little more than just wishful thinking. Commissioner Timothy Romer told CNN, "We were extremely frustrated with the false statements we were getting." Commissioner John Lehman told NBC Nightly News, "We purposely put together a staff that had conflicts of interest." Commissioner Bob Kerrey was quoted on Salon, "There are ample reasons to suspect that there may be some alternative to what we outlined in our version," which, of course, alternatives were never examined. Senior counsel for the 9/11 Commission, John Farmer, who led the staff inquiry, was quoted in the Washington Post, "I was shocked at how different the truth was from the way it was described. The tapes told a radically different story from what had been told to us and the public for 2 years." Current Republican Congressman Ron Paul joins his voice in calling the investigation fraudulent and a cover-up. You have also Congressman Dennis Kucinich, who's articulated this, and Senator Lincoln Chafee, a Republican of independent bent, endorsed a new 9/11 investigation. The former U.S. Congressman Dan Hamburg actually stated that the U.S. government assisted in the 9/11 attack, adding that, "I think there was a lot of help from the inside." These are responsible people, may have their prejudices and their biases, but it's nothing that one should discount when looking at the product of this investigation. The nonprofit organization NYC Coalition for Accountability Now, whose board includes 9/11 victim family members, is seeking a 9/11 investigation at the state and federal levels. Victims' family members, at whose insistence the 9/11 Commission was formed, have said that only a fourth of their well-researched questions were answered, and many of the rest of their questions were not even pursued by the Commission. For example, the collapse of the World Trade Center Building 7, which baffled engineers, and you'll hear more about that in this debate, was not even mentioned in the committee's report, the Commission's report. The 10,000 pages report by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, a government agency that is part of the Department of Commerce, explicitly avoided analyzing the behavior of the Twin Towers after the collapse began. The focus of the study was on how each tower became poised for collapse by the damage caused by the jetliner impact and resulting fires. On the assumption that those were the causes, no other hypothesis was brought about how these skyscrapers were brought down or discussed in the report. More broadly, when Colin Powell was trying to get the UN to authorize U.S. action to go after Osama bin Laden in Afghanistan, now mind you, this wasn't the appearance before the UN where he lied about the intelligence that we had. This was earlier. He promised to provide the evidence of al-Qaeda's involvement in 9/11, a white paper, which has never materialized. To this day, the FBI website does not list Osama bin Laden as being sought in connection with the 9/11 attacks, with its spokesman explaining that there is no hard evidence linking bin Laden to the attack. FBI Director Mullah admitted that not a single piece of paper linked the officially named suspect in the attack. So there appears to be some strong reason for revisiting the key issues surrounding 9/11. Today, we will be discussing in particular the events that led up to the greatest loss of life on 9/11. Not the jetliner impact and resulting fires at the World Trade Center, but rather the destruction of the World Trade Center Twin Towers less than 2 hours later. We will also examine the mysterious complete collapse of Building 7. Engineers associated with the United States government blame the destruction of all three of these modern steel frame skyscrapers on the jetliner impact and fires. It is outlandish to doubt their conclusions, is it? Many people have doubts about the beginning. Over the year, a whole movement has arisen consisting of concerned citizens all over the world, the so-called 9/11 Truth Movement. Movements like this start out because the government doesn't do its job, and so people thinking the worst then are abroad with all hosts of conspiracies. But that's not what this debate is about. We're talking about a body of people with the technology and the knowledge to deal with the specifics, not the political aspects of it, with the specific technical elements involved in the destruction of the Trade Center and Building 7. According to a Zogby poll in 2007, 51% of Americans questioned the official 9/11 account. Well, we're going to take our own poll right here, right now. And then after you've had a chance to see the argumentation on both sides, we'll take another poll. But right now, let me ask you 3 questions. One, and raise your hands after this. How many of you pretty much believed the official account of the high-rise collapses, that the planes impacted the buildings and there was a large explosion of jet fuel and ignition of fires, weakening the structural steel, and a gravitational collapse brought down everything to the ground. Raise your hands. Oh, okay, let me read the other two questions. How many are unsure? And about how many already believe that the Twin Towers were brought down by controlled demolition? First question. Now, how many pretty much believe the official account? Raise your hands. Wow. Well, she's not sure. Okay. Then the next, nobody's raised their hand that I can see. You got to vote, and nobody's voting. One in the back I can't see. Okay. Okay. The next one is, how many are you unsure? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Press TV doesn't count. Okay, got 4 or 5, right? Okay, and then the last one. How many already believe that the Twin Towers were brought down by controlled demolition? Well, we don't have to have the debate. It's already been settled. You want to count them all?
Yeah.
Okay, raise your hands and keep them up, because we do want to have a record of this.
Thank you. Thank you. Say thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The nonprofit organization Architects and Engineers of 9/11, referred to as AE 9/11 Truth, has examined a great deal of evidence available in the public record, and has also concluded that the Twin Towers and the lesser-known World Trade Center Building 7 were destroyed by explosive controlled demolition. They have a petition that they've delivered to the Congress earlier this year. It has been signed by over 1,270 professionals, technical professionals, licensed and degreed architects and engineers, with well over 1,000, with well as thousands of additional supporters. And as was pointed out by Richard, Congress has not responded, even to the most recent information, has not responded at all or shown any interest at all in doing anything about this. Those that will be, and Richard also pointed out that there was 3 groups that were being formed as we speak today. One is military officers, the other is scientists, and of course actors and supporters like myself, who are not technicians, but have some sense of how the world works. The military officers, you've got Commander Ralph Kolstad and Colonel George Nels. The scientists are David Grissom, Lynn Margulis, and A.K. Doudney. The AE 9/11 Truth crossed the historic milestone of 100,000 people joining with their signatures petitions on September 11, 2001. No. February, I don't see the date. February 19th is when they reached that threshold. On that day, they sent a petition to Congress, and of course, you've already heard that there was no response. To date, the AE 9/11 Truth is represented here today by 4 of its petition signers. These are gentlemen at the table. There's Richard Gage on my immediate left. Next is Tom Zambati, and then Tony. I'm sorry, I apologize. And the other gentleman is, Greg Roberts, who's took off for a moment here. We will now proceed with the statements and rebuttals forming the actual mock debate. Now, bear in mind, the people who hold to the government storyline were invited to join us today. Only one member said he would, and of course his schedule did not permit him to do that. And so we will now go forward with the slide presentation of the individuals and their statements, which you'll be able to see, and then you'll be able to see and hear the actual facts presented by AE 9/11 Truth.